Well, good afternoon, everybody. Hey, this is kind of a bonus video this weekend where I'm going to talk to you about going to the movies. Now, that's something that a lot of us don't do anymore because there's just so little worth watching at most theaters these days. But I tell you what, now I'm just angry and upset, and I've got to go see this movie, The Sound of Freedom. And one of the reasons I've got to go see it is not just because it messed up the box office, what should have been a box office victory for the new woke Indiana Jones movie, but it's apparently being targeted now, being attacked by leftist Marxists who can't stand the idea that this particular film has done so well. What am I talking about? Well, let me tell you a little bit about it. A lot of these leftist media outlets have now slammed the new Sound of Freedom movie, claiming that anti-child trafficking film is a QAnon fantasy for the conspiracy-addled boomer. Huh? Now, you might be like me. I don't know much about QAnon, who they are, but they're the boogeyman. Now, here's what you do. You create a boogeyman, somebody that you could never possibly support, like a Nazi. And then anytime someone disagrees with you in your position, you just call them names. And so a person like Jim Caviezel doesn't have a clue who QAnon really is. What little he knows about them, he would never associate himself with them. But, oh, he's been labeled now, and anyone that has anything to do with this new movie. So as we look at this situation, it's one of those that has gotten me so upset that I'm going to be lining up to get a ticket to see it just to upset these people. But what are we talking about? Well, the official synopsis of The Sound of Freedom says, based on the incredible true story, so we're not talking about fiction here, we're talking about something that actually happened, it shines a light on even the darkest of places. After rescuing a young boy from ruthless child traffickers, a federal agent learns the boy's sister is still captive and decides to embark on a dangerous mission to save her. With time running out, he quits his job and journeys deep into the Colombian jungle, putting his life on the line to free her from a fate far worse than death. Now, so this would be a movie that you might want to go see, although it's a little bit sensitive. You wouldn't necessarily want to take the kids to see it. But it's one that perhaps is speaking to things going on in the world today. It was written and directed by a Mexican director and a Mexican producer put it together. So the folks feature, the movie rather, features the Passion of the Christ star Jim Caviezel and Academy Award winner Mira Sorvino. Now, what's interesting is the regular, I guess you would call them mainstream movie industry, had the opportunity to have this film and to get it out and make money on it themselves. But that's not what happened. Filming for Sound of Freedom actually ended back in 2018, had a distribution deal with 20th Century Fox, but the movie was shelved after, guess who? Disney acquired 20th Century Fox. Disney then released the rights to the movies, and it was scooped up by Angel Studios. Angel Studios, a little-known company that, almost doesn't have a chance to stand up against the big boys, right? Well, Sound of Freedom, with a budget of only $14.5 million, outperformed Disney's highly promoted Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny with costs of nearly $300 million. Actually, I heard today the costs have exceeded $330 million. Some costs seem to be hidden and even more expected. So Disney is looking for a big hit to their pocketbook yet again with another flop that's not going to cover its expenses. So despite the stunning success of the underdog movie that's tackling human trafficking, written and directed by a Mexican director, the liberal outlets have trashed it as some kind of QAnon fantasy. And here's the boogeyman. It's almost like the word came down from the top. Here's what you've got to do. Here's how you've got to write about this. And all of them have complied. Rolling Stone published an article with the title, Sound of Freedom is a superhero movie for dads with brainworms. And the subtitle reads, the QAnon-tinged thriller about child trafficking is designed to appeal to the consciences of a conspiracy-addled boomer. So here's the line, and it gets repeated by all these leftist outlets over and over again. The author accuses the movie of fomenting moral panic for years over this grossly exaggerated epidemic of child sex trafficking, much of it funneling people into conspiracist rabbit holes and QAnon communities. Really? Is that what's going on here? I mean, with all the crazy works of fiction that are out there, you'd think somebody would give these folks at least a little bit of credit. The author goes on to slam the Sound of Freedom movie for presenting a hackneyed white savior narrative. Now, Glenn Beck does a great job of presenting this in the Blaze News. You can read the full article there. But it goes on to cover how many of these outlets, including The Guardian, Washington Post, and others, just talk about how terrible this movie is. Why? It's because it does not fit their liberal narrative. One particular outlet that is crazy in itself is entitled Jezebel. Now, can you imagine if you've got a publication named Jezebel, exactly what you're going to try to promote? Well, Jezebel is a leftist website for women which ran with the headline, "Sound of Freedom is an anti-child trafficking fantasy fit for QAnon." There they go, using the boogeyman again. And the Jezebel writer admits that she was entertained in some way by the movie, but suggested that the film is just propaganda. Now, Jezebel is owned by Geo Media, a leftist digital media company that recently even started publishing error-filled articles written by artificial intelligence bots. And they're always parroting the leftist line and a hatred for Christians that you would find disturbing and gut-wrenching if you ever read any of their articles. So the fact that these kind of outlets are saying don't go see the movie makes me want to pony up some cash and head down to one of the theaters that actually is going to be hosting it. Because the number of theaters that actually had on July 4th the Indiana Jones movie playing versus those that were playing The Sound of Freedom, Indiana Jones had it more than doubled, yet they still could not match the number of people that went to see Sound of Freedom. Now, is human trafficking a deal? Is this something that, I mean, do you ever, I don't know if you ever hear your pastors preach on it or if you ever hear any real news about it, because it seems like the leftist media wants to control this narrative. Why? Because our open border seems to be one of the biggest complications in the whole human trafficking and human slavery deal these days. I mean, as you look at this, if you fall on the side of let's ignore the border, oh, just let everybody come in, and no, there's nothing wrong with this. Our border's just secure. It's fine. If you've bought that, if you've swallowed that pill, you don't want to hear about this. But is it a real deal after all? Well, listen to the facts, okay? Not the QAnon garbage floating around from the leftist media. Listen to this. The International Labor Organization and the Walk Free Foundation, in partnership with the International Organization for Migration, that's IOM, they released what's known as the Global Estimates of Modern Slavery back in September of 2022. The report estimates that at any given time in 2021, approximately, are you ready for this? 27.6 million people were in forced labor. Of these, 17.3 million are exploited in the private sector, 6.3 million in forced commercial sexual exploitation, and 3.9 million in forced labor imposed by the state. Now, the definition of forced labor, you can see that in the Blaze article and some other things, but actually here we have a tremendous human tragedy going on all around our world today. But the leftist media doesn't want you to notice that because they're more intent on pushing the Marxist line and turning us into some kind of socialist state that just obeys Big Brother and the big world kingdom they're trying to support. So this report also estimates that some 49.6 million people were in, quote, modern slavery. When I thought we got rid of slavery after the Civil War. Hardly. And when I said in a video here a couple of weeks back that there are more people in slavery now than there were a century ago, some people just fumed at that. They said, "You got to be kidding. Are you an idiot?" No, the statistics actually say it's a whole lot worse than I thought it was. 49.6 million people in modern slavery at any given time back in 2021, the last time they collected these statistics. So as we look at this situation, we're not talking about something that should be swept under the rug and ignored the way those leftist media outlets would like for you to just, tuck this away. No, you can't hear this. You can't hear anything about this. It's just a QAnon conspiracy theory. No, I'm going to put my shoes on and head to the theater. I want to go see Sound of Freedom. And I want to see the movie based on something that did actually happen that alerts us to the terrible situation going on in our world today. Oh, friends, listen, it's a conspiracy, all right, but the conspiracy is all about making you ignorant of what's really going on in this world so that ultimately the beast kingdom can take control. Well, friends, until Jesus comes for his church, we are called to resist. We're called to stand against evil and stand against the lies as long as we can. Well, God bless you. Thanks for spending a little extra time with me today. We'll get back to Wake Up in the Word first thing Monday morning. Don't miss it, and I'll see you then.